If you're like most solo and small firm lawyers, odds are that you're unhappy with your law practice. Maybe you aren't making the money you want. You don't have the number of clients you want, or your practice isn't growing as quickly as you'd like. Maybe you aren't spending enough time with friends and family, or taking care of yourself. Especially here as we face a year of being in the coronavirus pandemic, it can be easy to blame your unhappiness on what is going on around you. But the coronavirus isn't causing your unhappiness. Politicians and elections aren't causing your unhappiness. No person or thing is causing your unhappiness with your law practice. You are causing your unhappiness with your law practice and with your life. And we're going to talk about it on this episode. I'm Brad Miller, and this podcast will help you transform your law practice through deliberate design, core business competency, mental mastery, and powerful positioning so that you can have a practice that gives you the life you want, not a life that is the mercy of your practice. If you want to stop struggling, spend more time with your family, live a life of abundance, and make a difference in the lives of your clients, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to the New Modern Lawyer Podcast. So I wasn't sure where I wanted to start with this episode. And before I go any further, I want to apologize. There's some mowing going on outside my window. So if there's a little bit of sound in the background, I apologize for that. I do very minimal, if any, editing, and so hopefully we don't run into problems. But again, if we do, I do apologize for that if that's in the sound. So I was thinking about how I want to go about this. Most lawyers, most solo small firm lawyers, and maybe even a majority of them, if they're truly honest with themselves, are not happy with their law practice, which then in turn impacts the happiness they have with their lives. And I'm not saying that they're not happy with anything about their law practice. Maybe there's just a small part of it. Maybe they're just not quite where it wants to be. But a good majority of lawyers out there, solo small firm lawyers, aren't happy right now with the current state of their law practices. And this is something that most lawyers don't like to talk about. They don't acknowledge. Because lawyers are like cats. I don't know if you've got a cat, but if you do, you know that cats, it is very tough to tell when a cat is sick or injured or not feeling well. They will kind of hide any injury, any weaknesses they have, and it can be really tough sometimes to be able to tell whether there's something wrong with them. Unlike a dog, where it has the just the slightest indication of any sort of injury or pain, and it's on the floor moping and, oh, woe is me, and giving you the big eyes and flopping like it's, they're in their death throes and, but really playing it up here. Cats, on the other hand, don't do that. And it's because cats are predators at heart. Your house cat is really a little baby tiger, essentially. But the rule for predators is that you don't show signs of weakness. Because if you do show signs of weakness, then the stronger animals out there will eat you. They will gang up on you, whatever, and they will eat you. And so predators learn kind of at an instinctual level almost that you need to hide any weakness. You can't show that you are weak in any way because that'll put you at disadvantage for your survival, survival of the fittest here. And lawyers, we're kind of like cats. We don't like to admit we have weaknesses. We don't like to admit when we have problems or ask for help with things. And some of that, it can be a good thing. That can drive us to finding solutions to our problems, to excel. And probably a lot of you have relied on that to help get you where you are today, to get you through law school and into the practice of law. But it becomes a problem when it keeps you from getting the help that you need, when it keeps you spinning and hitting a wall and kind of stuck in this cycle of never being able to get any further because you don't want to admit to others that there's something wrong. So I realize that this is a sensitive topic today, but it's something that I definitely think is important and I want to talk about today. And that is lawyers and why you are unhappy with your law practice. You chose, let me back up here, the series of choices you made in your life have led you to where you are today, not these external factors. Okay, you made the choices that led you to where you are today. Okay. Yes, you did not choose, none of us chose to have the coronavirus come. Okay, that was not a choice that we had. But we chose how we got to this point. You chose that you wanted to be a lawyer. You chose going to college, undergrad, going to law school. You chose the law school you wanted to go to. You chose the practice area you wanted to practice in, the type of practice. You chose you wanted to be a solo or work into a small firm. You chose how you set up your practice. Those were all choices, and that's what led you to your spot you are today. And you have a choice of how you react to those external circumstances and the things that happen in your life. You could choose to sit around and mope and complain and feel sorry for yourself and be a victim that the coronavirus came and the pandemic came and shut down a lot of the courts and everything else, and it's impacted the economy and businesses and everything else. Or you can choose to respond in a positive manner. I have a client that I've been working with, and before the coronavirus happened, before this pandemic, the majority of her practice was focused on litigation. So she did a lot of work in court. And when the pandemic began and courts and everything was shut down, people were to stay home, all that work that she had in litigation all of a sudden just stopped. There were no courts to handle any of the work, any of the cases. Hearings were postponed indefinitely. There wasn't anything that she could do, any work that she could bill on and pass on to her clients in that case. Did she just give up? Did she just say, well, I guess there's nothing I can do and throw her hands up? No. She chose to take action and to respond. She chose to look at other areas of her practice. While it wasn't at that time a big part of her practice, she also did transactional work for clients. She did some intellectual property work in the firm. They also did some general business advising. And so she turned her focus onto those practice areas and really made a big push to reach out to her current clients and ask them, how she could help. Maybe what impact the pandemic was having on them, and how that she could respond to that, what legal things might have arisen that she could help address for them. She also decided to really focus and concentrate on marketing, because now she had some more time. She wasn't busy with litigation cases. She had some time to focus on some marketing, particularly in video. This is something that she had been thinking about doing and had been talking, something I had told her that would be a really good thing for her, that would be a good fit for her and her personality, that she would present really well on video. And so she took the jump and went kind of all in on video, making videos for her website, creating a YouTube channel. Now she's doing regular, weekly or monthly or whatever, little short 2-3 minute blurbs on little legal things you should know for businesses and for her clients. And while she didn't quite hit her 2020 goals revenue-wise, she was much closer than she would have been had she not have done these things, had she not have kind of pivoted a little bit to focus on those practice areas that weren't, closed down by the courts, and really focus on her marketing and continue to bring in work. And now she knows that going forward, she's very well positioned for even bigger growth now, because she's diversified her practice a little bit. So she has a couple different streams of revenue, and she's got this marketing thing that she's now going to go on, which is going to be churning and bringing in new clients and helping with that. So she chose to take action and chose to respond to everything that was going on, and not kind of throw her hands up and go, woe is me, and kind of give up. And so your reaction to things like this are why you are where you are today. blaming these other things, these external factors, blaming politicians, blaming other people, your clients, blaming the environment, the weather, blaming, viruses, things like that. All that is going into victim mentality. Instead, what you need to do is take responsibility. Realize that, I created where I am today, and that's fine. Where you are today is going to be different from where somebody else is and where somebody else is, and that's perfectly fine. You are where you are today. And, there's no reason to look back and feel sorry for yourself or, kind of beat yourself up. What you want to do is say, here's my starting point. Here's where I am today. And then you can kind of go from there and start going forward based on that today. Now, where you think you should be. One of the biggest problems that I see that solo and small firm law owners have, and this is something that I did myself. I was guilty of doing this as well when I started my practice, is not having a clear vision of what they want their life to look like, and of what they want their law practice to look like. When I graduated law school, law firms weren't really hiring. It was 2007, so we were just starting to get into the economic issues that really came to a head in 2008, and firms, small firms, even bigger firms, weren't really hiring new graduates at that point. And I had expenses to pay. I had bills due. I had student loans that were coming due that I had to start paying on. So I had to do something. I couldn't keep waiting for that phone to ring with an interview or a job offer. So what I reluctantly at the time did, and without really planning on doing it, I decided, I made the choice that I needed to start bringing in money. I had this law license in hand that I had just gotten, and you know what? I was going to use it. And so I started my solo practice. And like I said, I didn't have a plan when I started my practice. There was a law school classmate of mine who had an office across the hall, and he was a solo. And so I kind of looked to see what he had done and kind of based off of what his law practice looked like. And that's kind of what I did. He kind of had a general practice, took on a couple different areas of law at the time. And so that's kind of what I decided that's what I was going to do too. It seemed to work for him. I was going to follow in line. I didn't really have my own plan though. I just was kind of jumping in and just, I'll just deal with it as it comes. Well, fast forward 4 or 5 years, and I never really came back to dealing with it and figuring out what it should look like. I was still just kind of flying as is. And because that was the case, my practice never really had a direction. I never was able to really sit down and say, what do I want and how do I get there? And not having that clear direction, not having that plan, meant that my law practice really kind of floundered for those first 5 or 6 years, where there was really no direction. There was no, no success. It was, a lot of financial struggles during that time. A lot of things going on. Wasn't really making money. Had trouble getting clients and things. And it was all because I didn't really know what I wanted. I was just sitting out there and seeing what the breeze blew back to me. And, sometimes that can work for you, but over the long term, it's really important that you have a plan of where you want to be. Because when you don't have that vision, when you don't have that plan, again, you can't get there. If you don't know where you're trying to get to, you start driving, you're never going to get there. There's no place to get to. There's no goal. So that's kind of an awkward roundabout way to kind of get back to, that's really important that you need to have a clear vision of what you want. And if you don't, that could very well be the source of some of your unhappiness, is that you don't know where you want to be. You know where you are today. And we talked about, you kind of made the choices that got you there, but you've never made the choice of where do I want to go? What do I want my law practice? What do I want my life to look like? And that lack of direction can cause unhappiness. So if you don't have that plan, take a time, sit down, come up with a plan, think about what exactly do you want your law practice to look like? What do you want your life to look like? For those of you who do have a vision or an idea of what you want, it's, unhappiness probably stems from the fact that you're not seeing the success that you want. Now, let me ask you, what does success mean to you? Is it a financial number of some sort? Is it a threshold that you're trying to hit? $20,000 a month, $250,000, a year revenues, a certain amount of profit. Is it in terms of firm growth, being able to bring on staff, hire additional attorneys? What does that growth, goal look like to you? Is it in terms of peer recognition, awards that you receive? Is it kind of these external things, people talking and saying to you, you look like you have a successful practice? Is that kind of what you need to verify to yourself that you're successful? Or is it something maybe like, for me, success to me is being able to positively impact others through my work. And so, if I can help a client and do something that makes their life a little better than it was before I met with them, before they reached out to me, then for me, that's a success. But, you got to know what that success is. And before you can see and kind of figure out, why you're not hitting that success, why you aren't reaching that. With that success, with that definition, how realistic is that for you? As lawyers, we went through law school and all that and passed the bar and everything else. And so, you kind of have to be a smart person to be able to do that stuff. And, you probably have gotten a lot of different achievements and accomplishments along the way. And so it can be really easy to kind of establish that in your mind that, the expectation of achievement, of accomplishment. When you don't hit that achievement, when you aren't able to get what you think that you should be, that can be tough. It can be like hitting a brick wall. Like, whoa, what do you mean that I struggle at this? I got through all this stuff, school, all this fine. I had great grades. I was on law review. I was on the moot court team. I did all these accomplishments. I got all this academic prowess and things like that. What do you mean I can't bring clients into my practice, and I can't run a law practice, a business? What do you mean by that? And this is tough for a lot of lawyers, and I ran into this problem myself. Going through undergrad and high school and things like that, where you didn't really have to do a whole lot to get the good grades, and even in law school, it was a different challenge, and it definitely had to do more studying and more work in law school, but it was still, kind of that academic thing, that same sort of a expectation of, yep, I'm going to be able to do this, and obviously was able to. And then I got into my law practice, and those first 5-6 years particularly were really tough. I had weeks, months go by without the phone ringing, without, a new client reaching out to me. I'd sit there twiddling my thumbs. I didn't have work. I didn't have things to do. And meanwhile, relying on my, my then girlfriend to help kind of keep, our household expenses going and things like that. So I get that feeling of, why can't I accomplish this? What's wrong with me? And that can be a real big shock to the system. It was for me. So you have to look at, how realistic are your expectations? If you are just starting a law practice, it's probably not realistic to assume or to set a goal for, bringing in $20,000 of revenue every month. At least not to start. Now, maybe after a year or so, or, a little bit down the road, that may be something you can do. But getting started and not having clients and getting a law practice set up, that's probably not that realistic, regardless of how well you did in law school or how you've done in other aspects of your life. If there is some unhappiness there, if there is some feelings that, I'm just really not able to hit those goals of mine, I think first ask yourself, how realistic are these goals? Are these something that really I should be able to achieve? Have I been doing it? Practicing long enough to have the experience to be doing this? Is it, and remember, what your experience is going to be different than the experience of the lawyer next to you, the one down the street, your classmate. Everyone has their own experience. And so it's really challenging because we like to compare ourselves and think who's the best and things. But this is one of those areas where you can't compare yourself to others. This is really what is up to you when you're trying to decide if your goals, if your expectations are realistic for yourself. You have to base it just on you and not what other people have done. You drive yourself crazy trying to meet to best the Joneses, the next lawyer down the road. So be careful when you're doing that. There are some lawyers out there who, maybe your goal is realistic and things like that, but they like to, what I call, move the goalposts. So once they get kind of close to achieving a goal, they move that goal out further and they push it out further away from them. So, and there could be a couple of reasons why this is. There are some lawyers who, if you have a goal and you get to it and it seems like it's getting kind of easy to get there, maybe it wasn't as much of a challenge as you thought it was to get there. You may not feel worthy, for lack of a better term here. You're never worthy of achieving that goal. So let's say that you have a goal that you want to reach $120,000 of revenue by the end of the year. Okay, so that's $10,000 every month. And you are at December 1st, and you are looking at your books, and you realize that you are at $117,000. You only need another $3,000 to hit your goal for the year. And you kind of look back and think about it, and that seemed awful easy. You look back at your numbers in your books and you say, well, I see that I had a big case settled in February, and that case alone brought in $30,000 just in that month. But most of the work on that case, we didn't actually do anything here in 2021, or in this year. That was actually work that we all did the year before. So that doesn't really count, that work. So I'm going to bump up my goal. So instead of saying I need to hit 120,000 for this year, I'm going to bump it up. And now I'm saying, take that 30 and I'm going to make it 140,000 that I need to hit. So that feels a little bit more realistic and stuff like that. And there are lawyers or people who do that, who, if something seems like it's coming too easy, something must not be right. And so they push the goal out to make it harder to accomplish. And, that there are positives to that. That can be very useful as a way to motivate yourself, to make yourself to keep going, to keep achieving new things. But it also means that you never really hit that accomplishment. You never hit that goal. So you're always chasing after things. You never feel that satisfaction of accomplishing things. And I would caution, it's better, rather than keep on pushing the goal out and changing the goal before you get there, to allow yourself to get to that goal. Maybe it's an easy goal. Maybe it was a small goal. It didn't take a lot of effort, and you think, that was easy to hit. But congratulate yourself. Take the moment to say, you know what? Yeah, I got that goal. I met that. And then, kind of move forward and set yourself another goal up, and maybe make it a little more challenging, and do it that way, rather than just try to push and never really hit a goal. The other instance I see sometimes are people who are afraid of actually reaching their goals. They are afraid that, they've got this goal, and they've got it up on this high pedestal up here, that once I hit this goal, things are going to change. My life is going to be so different and so much better, and things like that. And, I think a lot of lottery winners probably hit this a lot, where you think, when I hit the lottery, things are going to be different. My life's going to be different. I'm going to be a different person. Things are going to be great. And then they don't. You hit that goal, you make that achievement, you win that lottery, and life isn't any different. And you get disappointed and depressed about it. I heard a story from James Wedmore, who is an online marketer. And he talked about how for the longest time in his business, he was only making, $100, $200, $300 a month in his business. But he knew in his mind that once he got to the point where he was making six figures, though, that was going to be the thing. He had made it at that point. And at some point, he joined, I believe, with another friend of his and put together a project. And lo and behold, this new project that they did brought in six figures of income. And, he was like, this is awesome. This is great. I hit the goal. And then he went into depression for several months after that because he realized that he had hyped this goal up of, in his case, six figures so much that when he got to it, nothing felt different to him. His life hadn't changed. He wasn't any better. Sure, he had more money, but he wasn't happier or anything. And it actually sent him into depression. And, and so there are people who, are afraid that's going to happen to them. Maybe they've experienced in the past or heard of other people. And so rather than put themselves out there and say, you know what, I'm going to hit this goal and it's going to be great, they kind of shy away. They don't want to hit the goal. They're afraid of the goal. And that can lead to self-sabotage. That can lead to yourself doing things to not hit that goal. It can lead to you moving the goal, changing the goal, so you never actually get there because you're afraid of what is going to happen when you do, that things aren't going to change. Or maybe you're afraid that things are going to change so much, they're going to be so different when you hit that goal, and you're just afraid of what that looks like. Maybe you're afraid of the change. Either way, moving the goalpost is something that I see and something to kind of look at. Is this a situation where, you are unhappy because you never hit this goal, but you're never hitting the goal because you keep on pushing it further and further to make it impossible. And so you can never hit the goal, so you will never be happy. It seems a little, circular there, but something to kind of keep an eye out on, something that, can't maybe, might have some impact if you find yourself setting these goals, having these expectations, but never really finding that you're able to hit them, So you've got this idea of what success means to you, and, maybe it's a realistic goal, but you're just still not hitting it. And that's why you're not happy. You can't hit that goal. You've got some expectation of where you want to be, and it seems perfectly realistic, aligned with what you think that you should be able to accomplish, but for whatever reason, you just can't do it. Why is it? So could be a couple different reasons that's the case. It could be that your practice, something about your practice, something the way that you're conducting your law business is out of alignment with your values. Now, your values are your internal operating system, let's say. They are the deeply held beliefs that you kind of base your actions off of. And if your law practice is not in alignment with those, then you're going to get some dissonance. In in psychology, the term is cognitive dissonance. So let me give you an example of what I mean. Let's say one of your highest values is family. That to you, family is very important. Maybe you've got kids, and spending time with them, watching them grow, being part of their lives as they get older is very important to you. But with your law practice, you are so busy and you find yourself working long hours. You find yourself staying late, missing practices, recitals, not being there for dinner. Sometimes maybe not even being there, when the kids go to bed, on the weekends, having to go in and get some work done, and not being able to really spend that time with the kids that, you'd like to. There's an unalignment, a disalignment there between your values, your highest values, which is family, and the way that your practice is operating. And that difference, that conflict can cause the pain, could cause unhappiness. That, the family and working long hours is often a big thing for lawyers. We devote ourselves so much to our clients, and we like to think that, we got to put our clients first, that we put them before us, that we put them before our families, or maybe we think that the best way to serve our families is by the work that we do, is by making lots of money. And unfortunately, that lots of money is going to require long hours and things, that we think that we have to put in, and a lot of work that we have to do to be able to make that money. But again, we're missing out on those events and those things that's really important to us, in our families' lives and our kids' lives as they're growing up. There's an unalignment there. And I mentioned the term, the psychological term of cognitive dissonance, which is just when you've got a disparity, a conflict between between either two beliefs or your beliefs and your actions. And in this case, it's between the belief that family is very important and the action of not putting your family first. And again, like I said, there's a lot of lawyers, a lot of lawyers out there, and this may be you. I may be talking directly to you. You may see this in yourself that, family is really important to you, but are you really taking action that's in alignment with that value? Are the things you're doing really signifying how important family is and spending time with them and with your kids? So I want you to think about that. And if it's not, then, look at, this is a place where you need to look at, what changes do I need to make to put these things back in alignment? What actions, how do I need to change my law practice around? How do I need to redesign my law practice so that it is now in alignment with these values, so that I don't have this uncomfortableness, this unhappiness, this conflict, the cognitive dissonance between what I believe in and the actions I'm taking. So that's one possible reason. Another one is that you're not committed to your law practice. And I've at times found myself running into this problem. In fact, to be transparent with you guys, I had this problem with my coaching practice here, that I wasn't committed. I found myself not being committed to working on the business. Commitment is huge. And if you aren't committed, it means that you're not doing the things that you're not being the person that you need to be, and you're not doing the things that you need to do to have the things that you want. And in this case, again, for me, it was, I want to have a successful coaching practice, but I wasn't doing the things that I needed to do. I wasn't putting myself out there and getting the word out and letting people know what I did, how I could help them. I wasn't, doing any marketing and things that I needed to do that I knew cognitively. I understood that this is what I needed to do to grow my business, but I wasn't doing it. And, I just wasn't, I didn't find myself committed. And maybe, maybe you're finding yourself with that same problem. Maybe there's just something about your law practice that is, you just haven't been committed to it like you need to be. You are, you're not putting the time in. If you're struggling for money, are you doing the marketing that you need to bring in new clients? Or are you just kind of waiting and hoping that the phone will ring? Again, that was me with my law practice back in the day. I just waited for the phone to ring and hoped that somebody would show up, which I never did. I wasn't committed to what I needed to do to build that practice. And so, are you really committed? How important is your law practice to you? How committed are you to it? This can also apply to your life, other parts of your life too. And going back to your values, if family is a really high value of yours, how committed are you to your family? Are you making sure that you are present for ball games, for recitals, for the events and activities in their lives? Are you there when they have the big occasions for their birthday parties and even just the small things like eating dinner together as a family or being able to tuck them into bed or reading them a story? Are you committed to this thing? How committed are you? And, so really, you got to be really honest with yourself in this. Are you doing what you need to do? Are you being committed to getting what you want? And, we talk about the places where you want to be, your expectations for your law practice here, and the kind of the life that you're wanting, and how committed really are you to that vision, to that goal? Think about that. How committed are you to that vision? What do you need to be, think, and do to get that? Are you doing that? Are you being those and thinking those things? And if not, that might be part of your answer right there. Third thing, do you have the necessary skills to get you to that goal, to that place where you think that you should be, where you want to be? Do you have the skills required to successfully or to run a successful law practice? Law school doesn't teach you how to practice law. Law school teaches you how to think like a lawyer. It teaches you how to focus on analytical things, how to issue spot, how to make logical conclusions analysis, maybe how to make an argument, research, things like that, some legal writing, but it doesn't teach you how to actually practice a law. And it definitely doesn't teach you how to run a law business, how to run a solo practice, how to run a small law firm. And so these are things that you have to figure out on your own. If you don't have business background, business experience, maybe from before law school, maybe a prior career, maybe you had family that had their businesses that were entrepreneurs, and you could kind of go off there. You grew up in that environment. If you don't have those skills, then that could be a big reason why that you don't have success. I had no one in my family that was a business owner. Both my parents, my mother was a teacher, and my dad worked in a factory, and there was no entrepreneurial spirit in the house. There was no talk about business or the things you need to do to run a business. And so when I got into law school, I went right from undergrad to law school. I had no business experience. I didn't take business classes in undergrad. I had no idea how to market my law practice. I had no idea how to understand the finances of my law practice. Was there money in my bank account? I understood that. But, being able to do some planning, some forecasting of, some budgeting of my law practice to see what do I need to make to be able to hit these goals and to get this kind of revenue and to be able to pay these expenses, and what can I afford to do, that's going to benefit my practice and that's going to see, and marketing and all these other things that I didn't know how to do. If you don't have the necessary skills for this, you're going to struggle, and it's going to be hard for you to hit these ideals, these expectations that you have. Thankfully, luckily for you, there are a lot more resources today than there were when I started practicing. I started practicing before you could go and type into Google or talk to Siri or Alexa or whomever and ask, hey, how do I market my law practice? Or how do I, what are some marketing tips or things like that? I had to figure it out on my own. But you don't have to do that. You've got more tools nowadays. You can go and look online. You can read books, read articles, there's information, all kinds of stuff online, and not just those things that are law specific, but general business books about how you market a small business, or financials or things like that. Accounting for businesses are also very good to have. You can find practice management related CLEs out there. Various bar associations. It used to be that if you want to, the only CLE out there was very specific, related to practice areas. So, how to do a divorce case, updates in criminal law, or securities regulations, and it would all be about substantive areas of law. Nowadays, you can find things, bar associations and other providers are putting things out there on running a law practice, on running a business. And so look for those. Try to see what you can find out there. You can find some of them relatively cheap too, especially through bar associations if you're members of. You can take classes. There are classes, online classes that you can do. You can take, look at your local community college and maybe take some marketing classes or some accounting classes or some classes like that for things that are areas that you want to buff up on a little bit, to find out where your weaknesses are. And you can always hire someone to teach you, hire a coach, hire someone that's going to help you do these things. It can be hesitant to, and I'm not saying that you should go and hire someone to do that things for you. at least not right away. You need to be able to understand how it works and how to do it yourself first. Once you then get the resources, when you start building your practice up and you start bringing in money and generating the revenues, then you can bring an expert in to do the actual work for you. Someone who this is all they do and are really good at it for you, and that way you can focus on the things that you're best at. But this is not the first thing you do. You still need to know the underlying concepts and things behind it yourself to do it. And the last thing is, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because this is for another podcast episode, but do you have the identity of a successful law firm owner? Coming out of law school, if you ask any lawyer out there, what do you do? Almost invariably, the answer is just, the answer you're going to get, I can't talk today, is I'm a lawyer. What do? I'm a lawyer. That's the first thing that comes out. That's how we identify. That's one of our strongest, our main identities as a lawyer. And that's great. That's really key to being able to successfully practice law to provide legal services to our clients. But if you want to be able to run a successful law practice, you also have to identify as a law firm owner, as the owner of a business, law business owner. And if you don't do that, then you're not going to do the things that you need to do to be successful. It goes back to the things we talked about not being committed as well. If you don't identify as a small business owner, as a law firm, a law business, as I like to call it, the term I use, a law business owner, you're not going to do the things that you need to do to be successful. And that, and if you're not doing those things, you're not going to hit those lofty expectations that you have for yourself. You're not going to be able to get to where you think you should be, where you want to be. And again, that's something for another episode, but really important. Identity is hugely important to the things we do and the successes, things that we have in life, and why you aren't getting the things that you think that you want to have. Okay, so the takeaway for today is that unhappiness is the space between where you are and where you think you should be. If you are unhappy in your law practice, it very well may be because you are not where you think that you should be right now. That gap between where you are today and where you want to be. And you're likely to keep being unhappy until you can bridge that gap and bring where you are today and where your practice is and where your life is to where you want it to be. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you guys next time.